Yeah, 100%. And I will say, like, again, traffic part, truthfully, does not matter unless your property is available. And it sounds simple, but I like we got an $8,000 per month booking in a property in North Carolina when in the off season for this property, we're maybe scraping by $3,000. The only like, and this one came to us on Airbnb. The only reason why we got it was because our property was available.
Hi everybody, Jose Luis Morales here. Welcome back to another episode of the Morales Group Show. Today we have Bailey Kramer. He's based out of Durham, North Carolina. And today he's going to teach us how to make $20,000 a month by hosting insurance relocation claims. In other words, midterm rentals. Welcome to the show, Bailey. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jose. I'm excited.
Same here. So for our viewers that don't know who you are, who is Bailey Kramer? And then how did you get involved in the insurance relocation space and specifically midterm rentals?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I'm Bailey. Really an entrepreneur at heart. I knew that I knew that I wasn't going to go the traditional route. So that was like in college when I was like, okay, what direction do I go? So I didn't just like start my real estate career in midterm rentals. I think no one like grows up saying, I want to host midterm rentals. Most people don't even know what that means. But basically the way I got started, the classic way, rich dad, poor dad in college. I started out flipping houses, wholesaling houses, um, doing long-term rentals, and then I eventually fell into the short-term rental world, which I still do today. I don't just do midterm; I do short-term as well. Um, but yeah, so we kind of fell upon doing the midterm strategy. To be honest, most of my properties that I either owned or co-hosted for other people were just short-term rentals. The classic what everyone thinks about as on a lake or near the beach. And then I actually had someone reach out to me and he said, hey, I have a property in the city in Indiana. Do you want to host it for me? And whenever I tell anybody like Indiana, they're like, who vacations in Indiana? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to host this property there. But long story short, the properties and you can do the midterm strategy anywhere, but where I found the biggest bang for your buck is in these Midwest towns, where people aren't vacationing to, but people need temporary housing, whether it's the classic vacation or sorry, the classic travel nurse, or even more lucrative, the insurance companies or contractors, which is what I'm really specializing in now.
I love it. So walk us through this strategy. I mean, off camera, you mentioned to me that in the Midwest, you've been able to buy homes for $100,000 that rent on a midterm basis for about $3,500 a month.
Yeah, that's
That's
correct.
crazy. Talk to us about, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to say with it, but I'll start here. When most people think midterm rentals, everyone goes to travel nurse, travel nurse, travel nurse. And I host travel nurses. I think why we have one or two stay with me now. But here's kind of like the mindset of midterm rentals as a whole. First, like the property itself. People are like, oh, I'm going to buy a 4-bedroom house and then host traveling nurses. I'm going to make a ton of money. Well, the problem is most traveling nurses are traveling by themselves. Sometimes they bring a partner or spouse. Rarely, I mean, we've had it, but like rarely do they bring their kids. They're usually picking up these travel nurse contracts to like make as much money as possible. And if they're by themselves, especially, they don't mind living, not glamorously. So because of that, they're not always looking to spend the most amount of money. And again, maybe in like a super cool city if they're going there for more of the experience. But I'm telling you, no one's coming to my cities in Indiana for the experience. They're just trying to make as much money as possible. So, so for those types of properties, like 1 or 2 bedroom properties, like are great for those people because they only need 1 or 2 bedrooms. But where you can get even more money is renting through insurance companies, or traveling contractors. Now, there's a lot to be said in here with it, and by the way, I don't hold back. So there's no secrets here. Um, but what I'll say first and foremost, and this is a lot of people too switching from the short term side to the midterm side, is, and this sounds like really simple. I mean, because it kind of is, the biggest factor, or one of the biggest factors in getting a midterm rental contract from an insurance company or traveling contractors is that your property is available for the next 60 to 90 days. So the reason why that is so important, that like I literally scroll on Airbnb, look like checking out the competitors, and I'm just like kind of smiling to myself because the biggest problem people have is they're like, oh, I don't have any bookings on my calendar. So then someone inquires for some random weekend 2 months out, and then they take it to make themselves feel good, like the host. And then when a insurance company or whatever is looking for properties available, their property doesn't show up because they had this random 2-day booking 2 months out. So one of my secrets, and it's not a secret, but one of my strategies is, like, from the properties that I do midterm rentals with, I'm not booking these things out 3 months in advance. I sometimes it's like 2 weeks, I still have nothing on the calendar. 1 week, I have nothing on the calendar. Boom! I now have a 3 or 6 month contract that's making me ride for the next 3 to 6 months at crazy prices. And one other thing I'll say about this is the vacancy is super low. So I'm mentioning, like, sometimes the timeline between like me getting my next booking could be tighter because no one plans for the house to be on fire, right? It just happens. They need a place to stay, so your place has to be available. Um, but yeah, that's just one thing that a lot of people mess up on. They get really anxious, nervous because they don't understand, like, how to find these contracts, I think. So then they're like, shoot, let's just lower the price. Let's just get these weekends booked. Let's just do this. And then their property is not available. And then they miss out on all the gold.
Well,
So,
and I think that's the biggest thing. So I've done short-term rentals, I've done long-term rentals, I've done Section 8. I haven't done any midterm rentals yet. My closest experience to a midterm rental is a property that I had in Simi Valley where they contacted me, but I didn't want to rent the garage because we were doing an ADU and they wanted the garage. And they were willing to pay slightly above market, but I didn't end up taking that booking back then. So, but I think that's the biggest issue that people have is how to find these contracts. So can you give us 3 to 4 different tips as to how to find the contracts? And I appreciate like you saying that you don't hold back, because I've had guests on the show that almost like they give you enough, but almost enough just
yeah,
to basically drive traffic back to them. But I could tell that they're holding back, and I press a little bit
yeah,
harder to try to get the juice. So I appreciate you
totally.
giving us the juice.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say, like, again, the traffic part, truthfully, does not matter unless your property is available. And it sounds simple, but I like we got an $8,000 per month booking in a property in North Carolina when in the off season for this property, we're maybe scraping by $3,000. The only like, and this one came to us on Airbnb. The only reason why we got it was because our property was available. So, and there's other factors, like the property's nice, it has like good furnishings, we have good reviews. So you can't just don't just take this and be like, oh, my property's available and nothing's coming to me. I'm going to give you sites to go on, but know that even if you're on all the sites and you have all the connections and your property's not available, or you have a reservation for a week long in a month and a half, you're there's no chance of you getting these bookings. So that's like the number one piece that you have to stress. As far as where you find these contracts, truthfully speaking, again, I'll give you all my sources in a second, but I think it's overhyped, because there's only so many places you can be on. Number one, Furnished Finder, great source, great site to be on. That's where we've probably gotten, I don't know, maybe like half of our bookings, maybe Furnished Finder. I say half. Other half, or I don't know the exact proportions, but I'd say Airbnb. People way underestimate Airbnb for getting these bookings. The $8,000 one we got on Airbnb. We've gotten other super big ones like 6,000 whatever on Airbnb, um, and we've even gotten one on Verbo. We've gotten like a traveling contracting group, doing like construction on Verbo. So that's another site. And then of course there's companies like ALE Solutions, TR temporary house, TRS housing, Sedgwick housing. Um, there's a couple of these like basic sites floating around which we list on. But what I've seen too with all these sites is, um, you can essentially go on their website. So go to like ALE Solutions. Oh, United Housing Corporation is another one. But like ALE Solutions, as an example, you go on their website. You can say that, on their website they have something that says like list your property here. So you put in all your details for your property, and then um, it's free. You just put your information in, and then if they have something, they'll call you. Now, one tip that I'll share though is, and nothing against anybody working there, but I've seen a lot of people at these companies be lazy. So even if you're in their database, they still might not call you. So, and I learned this kind of the hard way because I got an inquiry on Furnished Finder for one of my properties. So I called this person up, and they were like, "Yeah, we're looking for a place. We've been looking for 3 weeks." And I'm like, "Wait, 3 weeks? Like I've never gotten a call from you." So I said, "Am I in the database?" Because I knew I was. I just wanted to make sure. And they were like, "Let me check. Let me check." "Oh yeah, there's your property." And I'm like, "So why didn't you call me?" And she's like, "I don't really know." I'm like, "Okay, this is weird." So then after that, I started contacting them every week or two. And that's what I do now, saying, "Hey, I have a property available here and here. Let me know if you need anything. I have a property here and here. Let me know." Because sometimes, again, they just get lazy on you. So you can't just like set it and forget it and just, that's it. So being a little bit more active with it can help as well.
So when you say contacting them, is that like a specific rep or is that just the number on ALE Solutions? What does that mean?
So you can like you can contact just ALE Solutions. Yeah, you can literally just contact. You can look up ALE Solutions. Literally, the number that pops up, call them. I literally just did this. I don't know, an hour ago. Um, and yeah, you literally just call them up, have them. The option one if you're a homeowner. Option two if you're a landlord. Whatever the thing is. So you just connect with them and you can just talk to them. Now, once people reach out to me on Furnished Finder and on Airbnb, I start to collect their personal business numbers. So then instead of calling the random extension, the random ALE number and have to go through like, "I'll transfer you here," then I call people directly now. Same thing with emails. If someone inquires for my property on Furnished Finder, I'll jot down their email and they're part of my email blast. But yeah, you can literally just call them and they'll be like, "Oh, well, let me check if we have any pending people in your area." And then if so, they'll just connect you with the person who who needs you.
Got it. And then at that point, like, that's what I was going to ask. If it's like, if you're talking ALE Solutions, would they connect you with somebody more local as opposed to nationwide? Or are there like reps that handle like California or Southern California or Northern California or whatever it may be? Or how does that part work?
Yeah, I know that they're not local. I know that for a fact, but I do believe that they handle certain regions.
Got it.
Um, but even at that, like, and this is another good tip for collecting email addresses that I did. I emailed one of the reps that emailed me on Furnished Finder. I emailed her one time, said, "Hey, if you have anything, let me know." So she's like, "Okay, let me email this out to my team." She takes that my email and forwarded it to like 15 other people at her company, and then CC'd me on it too. So I had everyone's email at that point. So and I could be, I'm not, I don't know about this. I believe they work partially on commission. So they're incentivized to get you to somebody because I think they get a piece of it too. So even if you don't talk to somebody in the exact area, it doesn't matter. They will help push it forward.
Got it. So basically, one of the tips is whenever you're in contact with any of these people, add these people to your database, add these people to your contact list, and then figure out like what I should have done with that property in Simi Valley. When they reached
Yeah.
out to me, I should have made a note of who that person was and kept in touch with that person because more than likely that person would have other people that would potentially be interested. So,
Right.
pro
Exactly.
tip right there. Got it.
Yeah. And then when you contact them and they remember you, whenever they see something in some area, even if it's not your exact area, like they still text or call me or email me, "Hey, I know you had a property over here. Do you have anything over here?" Like so they start thinking of you, which is more of like that like they come to me directly kind of thing. It starts to pick up once you start working with somebody, multiple times and you're easy to work with and they're like, "Yeah, this was great. Let's do it. Let's do another one."
Let me ask you this, like, is there such a strategy where somebody looks up natural disasters? Like there was a time in 2017 where there was fires all throughout Ventura County and hundreds of homes were burnt. Do people ever look at that do almost like an arbitrage, start renting out all these properties and then rent them out to these insurance companies? Is that a strategy whatsoever? Or
I've never heard of that or done that personally. Technically, I guess you could do that. I mean, like if you're looking for a scrappy way to make money, I think it's possible for sure. I don't know how like long term sustainable it is or how strategic, but yeah, I mean, technically you could do that. Because yeah, I mean, we had in one of my cities, huge storm came through and trees were falling all over the place, and we're months later, and people still are like needing housing from it. So, um, yeah, by all means,
yeah,
there could be big events like that, or it could be something small where you're not going to hear about a storm like this on the news.
yeah.
But if trees are falling, unfortunately, I mean, people need housing. Like truthfully,
So how do you determine which properties are a better match for midterm rentals?
for sure. So for midterm rentals, really the bigger the better. Like if I were to pick I'd pick a 2 bedroom over a 1 bedroom. I'd pick a 3 bedroom over a 2 bedroom. I'd pick a four. It's like I would want to go as big as possible. Truthfully, I would say from what I found, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms is an awesome spot to be in. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, awesome spot to be in. If I can get a 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom, I'd be even happier. If I can get a 4 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, I'd be even happier. Um, but yeah, the biggest thing here is people like, they're typically families living together.
They want space.
Usually they have a kid or two, they want some space. And what I found too, and we actually are hosting one right now, we have one person. I don't know the stats on this, but I don't think most people live alone, or have like just them and a spouse. So whatever. But those people, if they're just a single person who just needs 1 bedroom, the insurance companies will still pay my normal rate for my 2 or 3 bedroom house for that person. Like we're doing that right now with somebody, $3,000 a month. Again, this is in the Midwest, $100,000 house, and it's just one person in this house. So if I had a 1 bedroom property, I could have just put her in there, but these insurance companies are still paying a high amount um, for this person, even though it's just one person in a 3 bedroom house. And the whole reasoning behind it, at least my theory, I guess, is if they're going to pay for a hotel, that's $100 a night, and it's not as convenient for the guest, and they don't get to have a kitchen, and it's not as nice. And if they have a dog and they need a backyard, so they're paying the $3,000 anyway. They're paying $100 a night, which is $3,000 a month anyways. And depending on what city you're in, right, that could be, or if there's multiple people, if there's kids, and there's 2 hotel rooms at $100 a night on the really low end, right? Like they have. This is saving the insurance companies money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like they're literally saving money, and we're over here like, oh my god, we're happy to assist.
It's a win-win for everybody. Which makes
Yep.
more money, catering to nurses or insurance companies?
Insurance companies all day. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess like could there be a situation where you make more money from a traveling nurse, and you rent by the room and you get scrappy with it, and sure, right? Or if you had like a fourplex or whatever, and you have like 1 bed 1 bath units, and you want to just throw nurses in there, that could definitely work and make money. But hands down, these insurance companies, from what I've seen, is the most lucrative the most lucrative thing that I've seen with the midterms.
Is there a website where you can go to kind of look at to see like almost like run some analytics? Like, hey, in Ventura County, there's 1,000 fires a month or 100 fires a month versus Los Angeles County where there's 3,000 fires a month or whatever. Is there any place to do that? And if so, how would you do that?
That's a good question, and honestly, I've never done that or even thought of it before. I think it's really. I think it is. I think it's smart though. But yeah, I honestly have never done it, never thought of it. Um, because truthfully, too, people like people need housing everywhere, even if it's a place where fires aren't as frequent. People are gonna you know be cooking food, and the fire, it's
Yeah,
unfortunate, or
it's
there's
going to
or
happen.
flood, or pipes bursting, right, anywhere in the Midwest where it's wintertime and their pipes could burst, right? That could be anywhere. So I haven't done. I think that's smart. Doing some of that research and where is it more prone. But honestly, I haven't done that.
Not really. Got it. So let's talk about the Midwest homes that you're buying for 100,000. Where are these properties located, and what makes them good midterm rentals?
Yeah. So with the Midwest, I personally focus in Indiana, but I don't think that. I think anywhere. I don't think Indiana is necessarily like the only good spot. I think there's tons of good places. I'm sticking there because it's honestly easier for my LLCs and things are going well there anyways. But what makes a good what makes a good midterm rental, I would say, and kind of just like when I'm looking at somewhere and I'm like, okay, is this a good place for a midterm rental or is it not? The first thing that I'm looking at is supply. How many people are doing midterm rentals or short term, like just how many literal properties are on Airbnb? That's like what I'm looking at. Um, and then you can tell kind of what, going back to what I was saying before. One of the and this is so tangible. Anyone can do this right now. Is I go on Airbnb and I put myself in the scenario. I'm like, okay, let's just say someone has a fire in their house today and they need a property for at least 3 months starting in a week from now, right? Because they'll be in a hotel for a couple of days, so they need it for 3 months. I'll literally go on Airbnb. I will just put in the dates starting in a week for 3 months, and I'll say how many properties are available. If there's zero, holy moly! Like if that happens, which again, unfortunately, just natural events happen. Like there's no properties available. And then the other thing too, like you can look at, okay, how many are available 2 months in advance, 1 month in advance, and just get a feel for how many properties are actually maximizing for the midterm rental strategy. Because like I said, like besides having your property furnished, nice, because that is one downside I will say. Sometimes it's happened probably 50% of the time. The guests who are going to be staying from these natural disasters at your house, sometimes they do go see your house before they sign the lease. So they get to like actually tour the property and say, I want this one or I want this one. So you can't just have a bad house not furnished. Like you gotta do the basics, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you're on Airbnb and there's no houses available for the next 30, 60 days, or there's a couple houses and you can read their reviews and you can just tell who's doing a short-term rental and who's doing a midterm rental. If they have 5 different reviews, like people get 5 different guest reviews in the past month, they're doing short-term rental. They're just doing a couple weekend stays. That's it. So that's one easy way to say who is doing a midterm rental. The other way too that I want to throw in is Furnished Finder. Like you can go on in Furnished Finder. I found that people don't update their calendar as much in there, so you can more look on Furnished Finder, just get like a general idea of like who's targeting traveling nurses and like how many properties are out there. But that Airbnb strategy, that's what I use, and that gets me really excited when I'm looking at a place and there's literally no properties available for the next 60, 90 days for a 69-day
So
stay.
So which pays more, short term or midterm? Like meaning like if I have my property advertised, obviously I have to advertise it at a certain price on Airbnb, right? So if
Mhm.
I look at the month, would I be making more base if somebody books short term, like 2, 3, 4 stays, or would I be making more if I book it midterm? And is there a way that after they see my property that I could say, hey, I'll make it available for the next 6 months, but at this rate? Or how does that negotiation happen?
Yeah. So the first question of which one makes more money, short term or midterm, at the end of the day, like if you take a lake house, let's say in the peak summer season, right? Like that's going to make, you know, we have a lake house that's going to, in the summer it does 25K a month. We're not getting a 25K per month contract on that thing. But if we
Yeah.
but if we get, let's say, an $8,000 contract on that thing and we average it out, we'll be pretty darn close as far as which one's going to make more. So I would say midterm rentals, if you land one of these big contracts, you will make more than a short term rental. And on top of it, have like the work involved once the guest is in there, it's basically a long-term rental. Like you don't have to really talk to them. If something breaks, of course, you're there to fix it. But the work involved is so low, and the money is just as good, if not better. Like in some of my markets that I'm in, I can guarantee no one's making this much money. I could make this much money as a short-term rental as I am as a mid-term rental. Plus, it's guaranteed rent from these insurance companies. Plus, it's a 6-month contract. Plus, plus, plus.
Yeah.
And what was that
What's
second
the
part you asked me?
um I forgot, but what I was going to
I have my
ask you
notes.
next is what are the challenges that people in the midterm space, like as a host, what are the challenges that I would face, and maybe take us through when you first started off. What were some of the challenges that you faced, how you fixed them, and challenges that come up for maybe some of your students as well.
Yeah, I would say biggest challenge overall is again that factor of your calendar is going to be completely empty, and then you have to like like you either get one of these 6-month contracts or it's kind of like like a baseball analogy. You're either hitting a home run or you're striking out. A lot of people get so nervous by it, and a lot of owners that I work with, they're like, "Yeah, I want to do this midterm rental thing," and I'm like, "Okay, I just want to let you know, like, if we don't have a booking for a week out, like you can't freak out because it's probably going to happen, right? Like that's the whole
Yeah.
nature of the game." And the owners I work with, they still freak out when we're not booked up. I'm like, listen. So we had a midterm rental guest for like I don't know 5 months or so, and then we got a new reservation like 3 days before this person checked out for 3 months, and there's only a 2-day vacancy in between. So it's like it was super last minute, right? But then we only had a 2-day vacancy, and now we're booked for another 3 months. They're probably going to extend. So I'd say like the biggest thing is just like patience and like I guess like
And being
trusting.
ready.
It's kind of yeah, being ready for sure. Um, and this is another thing because the one that I'm talking about was actually it was in an HOA, so we had to abide by 90-day minimums. But the other thing that I was going to mention that's super important, tangible takeaway, is the properties that I do midterm rentals with. I'll do kind of a hybrid strategy with short-term rentals as well. So, for example, if I have a property, and this one I just said was kind of an exception because again, it's in an HOA. But for the majority of mine, like if we don't have if our calendar's empty, right? Or someone's checking out in a week and our calendar's empty beyond that, I'll make the next 2 weeks or whatever 3-night minimums, right? Like I'll start getting some reservations in. I don't think I've been over like two short reservations before we strike big again with these midterm contracts. So using the
Mhm.
short term strategy as a hybrid is another way I think that can reduce fear from people to go from oh my god my calendar's empty to no we have a 3-day stay on the calendar, we have a 4-day, we have a 5-day, but not going beyond that because if you do your property is not available. If your property is not available, you're not going to land the contract.
Got it. What are the challenges that the reps face that you typically see? Meaning, like, how can I cater to the reps? How can I make their life easier? The people helping these families in these situations, and how can I cater to the families as well too? Because obviously they just went through a situation where their house is burned. I'm sure that it's an emotional process. I'm sure that they have things going on in their life that they're
Yeah.
experiencing as well.
Totally. So, like one of the biggest things, honestly, is just like responsiveness because these people are so eager to like get out of their hotel or like I had one person specifically who lived with a family member like an hour away. They were commuting every day to work because of this thing. So he just wanted to get out of there. Um, so just being responsive to the insurance company, being responsive. Sometimes the insurance company will give you like the person's phone number earlier on in the process. Sometimes it takes a little bit for them to be like, okay, here's the guest, here's their phone number. But when you do get the guest phone number and you like arrange the showing, essentially, is just showing giving the guest confidence that you are going to like be a good landlord. Essentially, I had one guest in particular. This is one of my $3,500 per month contracts for a $100,000 house, and he went to go see the property and he said, "Oh, I saw that this thing was broken," because we just had a different midterm rental guest move out. And he's like, "Oh, I noticed that this was a little bit this was a little this." He's like, "So I'm not really sure about staying here." I warned the guest, I warned the guy before he went in, like, "Hey, we just had someone move out. Like our crew has not been in yet." So I told him this up front, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just nervous. Like, what if the AC goes out? And we're staying here. Like, how do I trust you that you're gonna actually take care of us?" Because he had a family, kids, the whole thing. And I was like, this will all be fixed by tomorrow. And then like the next day we had it all fixed. I sent him pictures and he's like, wow, like I feel good with this guy that if something goes wrong, with a house, like anything could leak, anything could break. He knows that I was going to be extremely responsive and take care of him. So that was a huge one where and I was obviously doing everything I could to make sure that I can secure this contract, right? Like, so it's kind of common sense stuff, but you want to make them feel confident that you're going to be a good owner, a good co-host, a good host, and then you actually have to live up to that by doing the right thing, getting the repairs done fast, and just treating them as you'd want to be treated if something happened to like so if that happened to you.
How does the communication typically happen? Like I know on long-term tenants we have AppFolio and some they could put like maintenance request on AppFolio. What's the communication like? Are these people communicating directly through your cell phone? And then how do you guys and then do you guys self-manage or do you guys outsource the management? And what how do you guys handle if something does break like at 3 in the morning? How do you guys
Yeah,
handle those types of requests as well?
totally. So we there's really like I don't know if you're just doing midterm rentals, like you could just do your personal cell phone. Like if it's just like a one man show, you could just do that and be fine. Um, what I do is since I have short term rentals as well, I use a software called Hospitable. Um,
Mhm.
Again, if you're not doing short term rentals, you like don't. It's kind of a waste to use it. If you're just doing the midterm side, you probably don't really need it. But so we have some communication with them on their it's more like emails though, so it's not really great. What I do, because I have like an in-house team, so I have two employees that basically run all the management for me essentially. We use a software called Go High Level, so it's kind of like a CRM.
Yeah.
We do a lot of different things on it, but essentially it's like a an online business phone, if you will. So we have a
Yeah.
dedicated number for the guests. So like the guests are never texting me directly unless sometimes before they like sign the contract, I'll be super close with them and then kind of pass them off to my team. But yeah, and then if there's an issue, they just text us. We don't have like a formal process for submitting claims. We probably will like once we get even more busy with this stuff. But
Yeah.
right now, we're pretty good with just like, hey, shoot us a text.
Yeah. What are they how do you know what to charge the insurance companies? Like I think we talked a little bit about
Yeah,
the prices on Airbnb and if it was a lake house, but how do you negotiate with these companies? Like how do you know like what's fair, what's not fair? How do you know what they're
yeah,
willing to pay?
yeah. That's like the biggest question. So I'm glad you asked it, and it's kind of funny because the short answer is I don't even know. Now I'll give you some more context to give you a better idea. I literally talked to somebody today, an insurance company. He found me on Furnished Finder. He's from ALE Solutions. His name's Carlos. He's a very nice guy, and he said he gave you the rundown. I actually have it on my notes here. They need two beds. It's two adults, no kids. They have one dog. It's a pit bull, but they said that they don't have to bring the pit bull. Whatever. They gave me all the criteria, and I said okay. And I said my property's not available because it's already rented out. I said I may know other people who have a property available, just so I know how much is in the budget for them to pay. And he was like, the problem with these people is they won't tell you. Like they usually gatekeep it. So I was like, can you give me some number? And he's like, well, it just has to be like realistic, and it can't be like $10,000 a month again for this $100,000 property. So the way that I got $3,500 for my property, I would never have asked that, to be honest. I would have asked $3,000. That was my number in my head, and the insurance person said 3,500. So sometimes they'll say it, they'll be like, "Oh, does $3,500 work?" I'm like, "Sure." The $8,000 one, they just booked it on Airbnb, and it just was $8,000, so we kind of got lucky there. But to give more like tangible takeaway here is at the end of the day, these insurance companies, they're a business. They're not, you can't just say $30,000 for a 2 bedroom house in the middle of nowhere. They're not going to just do whatever. So, like, what I like to do to get a really good ballpark is I go on Furnished Finder, get a look for the 3 bedroom properties, whatever the property is, and you can usually increase it by a couple $100. If that, just for a really easy, quick, simple analysis, go on Furnish Finder, look for the properties available for your size, and you can usually increase it at least a couple $100. That's like I'd say that's like the safe way to do it. I still have not mastered a way to know exactly what these people are willing to pay. And I actually have a guest right now who they're only paying $2,800 a month for, again, $115,000 property. And I said $2,800 because what they do, you don't. And there's another note: you don't negotiate directly with these people, and they're like, "Oh no, you said 2,800. How about 26?" What they do is they take whatever number you say, they go back to the insurance company, and then the insurance company will say, "No, how about 26?" So it's like there's like a middleman involved, so it's not as easy of a negotiation. And the problem is, if you get too greedy and they find something for cheaper, they're going to go with the cheaper option. So I don't want to be too greedy with it either. I mean, I want to make as much money as possible, but I don't want to just
Yeah.
say $10,000 a month and they're like, "Well, we found somebody who's going to do it for like 3,500. So see you later."
I think that's I don't know if I know for me they wanted that garage really bad and I wasn't willing to
Mhm.
do it. Hindsight, the ADU permit took a lot longer to do, so I probably could have rented it out with the garage and just given it to them, and maybe it would have
Right.
turned out to it for a year lease or something like that. I thought the ADU permit would get approved a lot faster than it actually did. Um, so what do you see for the future of midterm rentals? Do you see any future saturation coming into the market? What I mean by that is that I know when the Airbnb frenzy kind of came about, like people like, oh, Airbnb, and everybody started buying Airbnbs. What do you see for the future of midterm rentals? And do you see any future saturation? And do you see it already in certain markets?
Yeah, so I don't see there being a saturation, truthfully, with midterm rentals, and the reason being is because when people have short term rentals, they always have something to look forward to. So, for example, if your property's not doing too well and you're a short term rental host, oh, the summer is going to be great. Oh, we're going to get money here. Oh, we have a 3 day stay coming. Oh, we have this coming. There's so many small wins when it comes to short term rentals, and I think that gets people that moves people along until they get to that breaking point where they're like, you know what, like all these small wins for the past year, it's not worth it. I'm just going to sell the property. So then they're done. I think that's what, and then they also, I think short-term rental hosts, they just reason with themselves, well, it's not doing as well as we thought, but it's saturated and this and this and this, but they're still making some money along the way. So I think that's what keeps short-term rentals more saturated is people will
Mhm.
hold on longer for midterm rent and yeah, for midterm rentals, you either go all in on midterm rentals, like knowing that your property is going to be vacant, or you just start booking random weekends. And most people are way too risk averse to not just book so they just book the weekends or whatever. So they're not going to even have the opportunity for a short term rental for a midterm rental. Then I think those people are going to realize, you know what, maybe this real estate thing or maybe this furnished rental thing isn't for me, and they'll go a different path. So it takes a very and it's not even I don't consider it risky at all when you know what you're doing. But for the people that get so nervous about their property not being booked out months in advance, they will never last as a midterm rental host because the second that they start to not they start to lose sleep at night, they're going to lower the restrictions. They're going to have 2 night stays, lower the price, and they're just going to get booked right up from a short term rental, and then they're not even competition at this point. So I see I don't see the competition being as being the same as it is for short term rentals.
It's basically it requires a higher risk tolerance from what I'm getting because of the fact that it could be vacant and the goal is to keep it vacant so that you do have it. So let me ask you this. Let's say somebody goes in all in on midterm rentals and they've got the calendar free for the next 120 days, the next 6 months. How
Mhm.
long should somebody keep the calendar clear before they're like, oh, maybe I am asking too much, or maybe there's too much competition, or maybe
Yeah.
my market's not the right market for this?
Yeah. So if you're not in an HOA, which honestly I don't recommend being in an HOA. I don't recommend having any of those like restrictions where you can't rent your property for 2 nights, 5 nights, 7 nights. I co-host one that is an HOA, so that's just a little bit different. But yeah, if you own the property or whatever, um, I would 100% do the hybrid strategy where okay, your calendar's open the next 2 weeks or next week and a half. Allow yourself to have a short term rental to get some money flowing in, but also at the same time, if you're not getting bookings, at least from my experience, you're probably not doing everything you can to get the booking. It's definitely more active than just like, hey, be on Airbnb, sit back and relax. Like, unless if you're telling me that you called every insurance company and you're actively reaching out for people, which most people aren't doing, like they're just being lazy at that point. So my properties probably average in the past year, like maybe 2 weeks total combined time of vacancy, like per property. So like we might have like 3 days between this guest and then 5 days between the next guest. So like that's 8 days. And so I want to be clear, like when I'm saying my calendar's open, we're always getting it booked, or at least using that short term hybrid strategy to get reservations. And I was actually just talking to a buddy of mine, and he was asking about the vacancy, and I said to him, "To factor in 10% just for underwriting purposes, but if my property was vacant for 30 something days per year, that's like terrible. Like there's no reason why you can't fill those 30 days of vacancies with at least some short-term rentals, half short-term, or hybrid strategy to lower that vacancy down to now 15 days. So I would say, to go to your question of if your property is still not getting booked, you're probably just being lazy. Like you're probably just not on the platforms. You're probably not calling these people directly. You're probably not using the hybrid strategy of using that short-term rental strategy. Truthfully, to me, it hasn't happened to me where I've had like any more than a couple days so far of vacancy, and of course it could happen, right? I'm not like I think I'm really good at midterm rentals, but I'm not saying I'm never going to have more than a week vacancy. And my thing is bulletproof, recession proof. None of that. Like it could happen, but it hasn't happened yet. Knock on wood.
Do you manage your price manually, or do you use a pricing software to do it?
So for the short term rental side, I do use a pricing software. I use Price Labs. But for midterm rentals, you don't really need a pricing software. If you're gonna okay, if I'm talking to myself here, I'm using a pricing software no matter what because I know the power of having the automation and not having to, worry about that. A lot of people, especially just starting out, they can't get over the mental hump of paying $15 a month for a software that they think doesn't do anything. I'm a believer, truthfully, you should have the software. Even if it's a midterm rental, if you get a booking, you turn it off. But what the software does essentially is this hybrid strategy I'm talking about of making your minimum night stays shorter if you're not booked out for a week or two. It just does that for me automatically. So could you do it manually? Yes, but I like to do it automated. As far as the actual like pricing goes, same thing. Like the pricing software takes care of it. Could you do it manually? Yes, for one property or two properties, but as you get more, it's going to just become a pain in the butt.
For the midterm rentals, do you ever put like a minimum stay of 30 days or more, like as part of the criteria? Does that filter help?
Yeah, so essentially, and this isn't I don't know my exact, and there's not like a secret exact thing, but like basically if someone wants to book my property, let's just say 7 days in advance. So in the next 7 days, someone's like, "Hey, my property's vacant. Hey, I want to stay." I'll let them stay for 2 or 3 nights at a minimum. If someone's like, "Hey, I want to stay at your property in 12 days from now," I'll say, "You got to stay for 4 nights." If someone is requesting my property 15 days in advance, they have to stay for 28 nights. And that's again automated through like the Price Labs. It does it for me. So yes, my minimum is 28 nights for like this midterm side. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it almost sounds like the closer it is, the shorter the stay. The further it is away, the longer the stay that you require, because obviously,
Exactly.
if not, you're almost like blocking yourself from other opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then anything else that you think would be helpful to anybody watching this, anybody looking to get into the midterm slash insurance relocation space?
Yeah, no, I think I know I said a lot. One thing that I'd mention too is, I guess, just another side note. People are always like, okay, Bailey, what if I can't get a midterm rental contract? Because I agree, like you should not buy a property. I mean, you should not buy a property just off of the fact that you can score this massive contract that's going to pay you more than a traveling nurse, more than anything else. So I guess one other thing to note is when you're looking at like your best case scenario versus your medium scenario versus your worst case scenario, usually the numbers on Furnished Finder you can use kind of as like go in to your property expecting to get Furnished Finder numbers, like price wise, but just know that your property has a potential to get more money from these contracts. But I wouldn't say like I wouldn't base my underwriting off of the fact that I'm going to score a massive insurance contract, and only if I do that will it be a good deal. If I don't get a contract, then it'll be a terrible deal. Like, don't do that. Yes, all these things I'm saying will help you a ton, but just like a disclaimer, like don't just don't just buy a property because you're like, oh, this $100,000 property, oh, it's not going to rent for $900 a month. It's going to rent for 4,000 a month. It can, like, it absolutely can, but don't like bet your don't I wouldn't like just bet just on that. Say, okay, if it makes $2,500 a month or whatever's on Furnish Finder, would you be happy with that? And if no, don't buy the deal. Um, because yeah, the insurance stuff is great, but you also can't strictly predict on when someone's gonna have a fire or flood. And then you have to be able to say, okay, if I'm not able to get one of these things and a travel nurse contract comes by that's a little bit less than my home run deal, if you can take that contract and you can be happy with it, you're in a good place. If you're like, no, if I that's like a terrible, because it's only a couple $100 less. So just be conservative. Don't I don't want you to just listen to what I'm saying now and just be like, I'm only going to get 4,000 a month and that's it. Don't be conservative with your underwriting, and I think that's the best way to do it.
Let me ask you this, because I think in different markets you can get access to different lists. If someone had the capabilities of getting access to a fire list, meaning like, hey, this house burned down on this date, would somebody be able to reach out to the homeowner and say, hey, look, we have this rental available, and them connect you with their representative at that point?
Yes. If I know like kind of like what list generally you're talking about, and I don't know
Yeah.
how fast they update them, but yes, if they can up if they the lists are updated super fast, and you call that owner directly, you can absolutely help move the process along faster by having them connect you with their agent or their insurance, whatever you call them, insurance specialist. Because like I said, these insurance specialists for the most part, the ones that I've worked with have been more on the lazy, slow side. They don't move as quickly as me or the homeowner wants. But if you can call that homeowner directly and then have them connect you, you can start to push it along a little bit faster. I've never done that
What
before, but it sounds legit.
what's the window? Meaning from the time the incident happens to the time they actually move into more fixed type of housing, like a midterm rental? Is it like typically like a week, 3 days, 10 days, 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's a good question. If I had to make a guess, I would say 2 weeks ish. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, because I don't know for a fact, that's just my guess. And the reason why is because when you make contact with an insurance company, depending how motivated everybody is, like how fast everyone can move, signing the contract, signing the forms. I mean, could you get in there? Could you get them in a couple days? Yes, but also the insurance company has to approve it. So it takes usually at least a couple days from like, okay, let's do this thing, to getting everything signed, getting the approval. Um, and then plus it takes a couple days now for the owner of the for the fire or whatever to contact the insurance company, and everything kind of just moves slow. So I would say a week or two seems realistic, and from the people I talk to, that seems realistic. I've talked to people though where they're like, it's been 3 weeks, it's been 4 weeks, it's been longer. And I'm like, why didn't these insurance companies reach out to me? But yeah, if things are moving smooth, you can definitely do 2 weeks. Like I think that's a good measure.
Got it. Now, Bailey, where could people get in contact with you if they saw value in this interview?
Yeah, Instagram's kind of the best place. I'm on like TikTok and all the socials, but Instagram's the best place. You can just look up my name. I think it's like the underscore Bailey underscore Kramer, and then you can find everything on there.
Got it. So, Bailey, I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to kind of share your knowledge with you. For our viewers out there, if you've enjoyed this episode, we had Bailey Kramer. He talked about how to make $20K a month by hosting insurance relocation claims / midterm rentals. So basically, we talked about the midterm rental strategy. If you have enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you feel that this episode would be helpful, make sure to hit the share button. So once again, thank you so much, Bailey. Thank you for the opportunity. And until next time.